Welcome to your week in review here on WINN FM 98.9 for the period February 24th through 28th. Making the news last week, IMF report signals modest recovery for St. Kitts and Nevis amid persistent fiscal challenges.
St. Kitts Nevis delegation backs CARICOM's support to Haiti.
St. Kitts and Nevis advances infrastructure with quarry modernization and desalination projects.
The St. Kitts Nevis Fire and Rescue Services commemorates its 25th anniversary with year-long activities. Prime Minister Drew sees benefits for St. Kitts and Nevis from CARICOM discussions. Brantley suggests a collaboration at the regional level to respond to mass U.S. deportation.
St. Kitts and Nevis continues to accelerate 25 by 25 food sovereignty agenda. Now, the details. The latest IMF staff report issued on February 26, 2025 paints a cautiously optimistic picture for the country. Building on assessments from the 2022, 2023, and 2024 country reports, the findings suggest a modest economic rebound driven by a revived tourism sector and significant strides in renewable energy, even as fiscal and structural challenges persist. St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister, the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew, addressed the IMF mission to the Federation during the February 27, 2025 sitting of the National Assembly.
The World Bank has sent its analysis, which is now with the FS, which will have discussions with the Nevis Island Administration so that we can flesh out properly how we will set up the mechanism to make sure that the sharing of revenues, whether tax or non-tax, that is totally transparent and open so that there is no question as to who gets what is the unfair sharing, but there should be equity. Equity, of course, takes into account difference in population and so forth, but nonetheless, it is critically important that there is equity and that nobody is shut out. Neither St. Kitts as an island nor Nevis as an administration should be shut out of what should be a transparent way of sharing revenue. So I wanted to highlight that.
After years of grappling with sluggish productivity and external vulnerabilities, the nation is forecast to experience growth of 2% in 2025, up from 1.5% in 2024. While the medium-term growth outlook is projected at 2.5%, the IMF staff underscored that this recovery hinges on continued progress in the tourism and renewable energy sector. In particular, the geothermal project, now nearing its drilling phase with secured funding, represents a critical component of the country's energy transition strategy. The report highlights that the current account deficit widened to 15% of GDP in 2024, up from 12% in 2023, reflecting pressures from declining citizenship by investment inflows and expanding fiscal deficits. Echoing themes from previous years, the 2022 and 2023 reviews had warned of vulnerabilities stemming from an over-reliance on volatile revenue streams. In 2024, the fiscal deficit reached 11% of GDP, driven by a sharp drop in CBI revenue. This trend is expected to moderate slightly to 9% in 2025. However, public debt is on an upward trajectory. It is projected to rise to 61% of GDP this year and potentially 68% by 2030. IMF staff continue to urge a robust fiscal consolidation program to steer public debt below the regional ceiling of 60% of GDP. The current report echoes recommendations from previous assessments, emphasizing the need for tax reforms, expenditure control, and institutional strengthening. Establishing a sovereign wealth fund to buffer fiscal shocks and manage volatile CBI revenues is also advocated. This measure builds on recommendations made in past reviews.
The other thing I wanted to highlight, Madam Speaker, is the matter to do with the Sovereign Wealth Fund. I want to thank the IMF for the work it has done. It has sent the framework for us to set up that Sovereign Wealth Fund. It is critically important because it's going to help to transform us into a sustainable island state and make us more resilient. That Sovereign Wealth Fund, had it been in place, the money that was in the SIDF, the nearly $500 million that was spent out of the SIDF without the people knowing, that money could have been placed in the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And that money could have been used in a more strategic way, where you maintain the fund and you were able to raise significant revenues to different types of actions.
Drew lambasted the former administration for what he describes as squandering the SIDF.
Instead, all the money has gone down the drain, and we were not told how the money was spent. That is a travesty, Madam Speaker. That hurts deeply. How could we have spent over $400 million and not tell the people that that money was being spent? That is, of course, I will leave that there, but just to let you know that for the first time, we will have a sovereign wealth fund set up. So we are establishing, Madam Speaker, the foundation of the new St. Kitts and Nevis, an economy, a country that will be more resilient and can stand up to shocks.
While bank credit growth accelerates by 11% year over year, mainly due to the expansion of mortgage and consumer lending, the financial sector remains at risk. The report notes that although non-performing loans are on a downward trend overall, they still pose a threat, particularly to credit unions, whose delinquency ratios have climbed to 10%. This rapid credit expansion, reminiscent of trends highlighted in the 2023 assessment, suggests that while profitability and capital adequacy have improved, vulnerabilities could be exacerbated by global financial instability or a downturn in key tourism markets. Despite near-term risks ranging from commodity price volatility to the ever-present threat of natural disasters, the report outlines several promising avenues for sustained economic improvement. The renewable energy initiatives, notably the geothermal project and a new renewable-powered desalination plant, could bolster energy security and generate additional fiscal revenue over the medium term. As government officials pledge to implement fiscal and structural reforms, the lessons drawn from the 2022 to 2024 assessments appear poised to inform a strategy to achieve long-term economic stability and resilience. The authorities have signaled a commitment to tightening fiscal policies, enhancing transparency, and diversifying revenue sources to ensure the modest recovery is sustainable and inclusive. The IMF report on St. Kitts and Nevis is available on the IMF website. It provides a complete account of the IMF's findings and detailed policy recommendations. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis has made significant strides in upgrading critical infrastructure components, including the natural quarry and a new desalination plant, according to the Honourable Conress Maynard, Minister of Public Infrastructure, Energy and Utilities, Domestic Transport, Information, Communication and Technology, and Posts. During his presentation at the National Assembly on February 27, 2025, Minister Maynard detailed the transformative impact these developments will have on the Federation's construction capabilities and water security. The 40-year-old government quarry has received a substantial modernization package with the recent arrival of 3 crucial pieces of equipment that will dramatically increase production capacity.
Today, I am pleased to announce that over the weekend, we have received another tranche of 3 critical pieces of equipment. That is the secondary crusher, which obviously the primary crusher feeds into, and the screen, which separates the different types of stones that we need, plus what they call a rock back truck, which is a huge truck that can't even fit in here. That goes into the terrain.
These upgrades represent a monumental advancement in local material production capabilities, with Minister Maynard highlighting that
the quarry's output is set to increase by over 300%.
The enhancement is critical as the country advances numerous infrastructure projects, including road construction in the Palmetto Point, Boyd's View, Newton Ground, St. Paul's, White House, and Shadwell areas. It also supports significant developments like the Ritz-Carlton, the pending Bastyr High School, the new General Hospital, and a performing arts center. Minister Maynard addressed progress on the nation's water infrastructure and provided a detailed update on the 2 million gallon per day desalination plant currently under construction at the industrial site.
I'm happy to report that the developers are on schedule with the project, and significant advancements have been made since its inception.
The project includes procuring 16-inch pipelines, the largest ever deployed in the Federation, to transport desalinated water to storage facilities. The desalination initiative addresses critical water security concerns for the island nation.
We are overburdening our aquifer, and if we continue, will be on the verge of collapse. And so this is well past due piece of infrastructure to secure our future when it comes to water.
Once operational, the plant will substantially increase the country's water supply capacity, potentially resolving long-standing distribution issues and reducing dependence on rainfall. Minister Clark emphasized the broader economic implications, citing that the project
will support not only residential needs, but also contribute to industrial growth, tourism, and agriculture, all of which depend on a steady, consistent water supply.
The Honourable Conress Maynard, Minister of Public Infrastructure, Energy and Utilities, Domestic Transport, ICT and Posts. Prime Minister Dr. the Honourable Terence Drew announced on February 27, 2025, that the country has secured over US $30 million to begin the initial phase of the Federation's geothermal energy project. The funding marks a significant milestone in the country's transition to a diversified economy. During the February 27, 2025 sitting of the National Assembly, Prime Minister Drew highlighted several major development projects and economic initiatives to transform the Federation into a sustainable island state.
To that extent, I want to really announce as well that we have raised over $30 million to start the initial phase of geothermal, which is the most critical stage to get started, the stage that is most difficult to get investments for. And so I've partnered with the Premier of Nevis, who also happens to be the leader of the opposition, to make sure that we could have secured the necessary funding.
The Prime Minister emphasized the collaborative approach taken with Nevis on this project despite political differences.
So I want to say that we are on track really to have drilling start for geothermal. We are already receiving companies and bids from those companies who are interested in doing the work that is necessary.
Dr. Drew described the geothermal project as having
the potential to put St. Kitts and Nevis on another level of sustainability, reducing our vulnerability and making us more resilient as a country and propelling us to a sustainable island state.
The National Assembly was also updated on the recent IMF Article 4 report, which projects 2% economic growth for the Federation despite ongoing economic transition challenges.
With respect to the report, we are expected to grow, even though I said that we were expected to flatline as we go through transition, understanding the difficulties with CBI. That should never happen again in the life of St. Kitts and Nevis, where we become so dependent on a vulnerable industry.
Dr. Drew also provided updates on the Bastyr High School project, noting the Environmental Impact Assessment EIA would be completed within weeks, allowing the project to progress. The Prime Minister criticized the previous administration for spending nearly $21 million and not much to show for it on the school project. The Prime Minister announced that the Performing Arts Center project is also advancing, with contractor selection in the final stages, and the Tabasco Agricultural Project is progressing with equipment procurement and securing a location at the industrial site. Additionally, Dr. Drew revealed that the IMF has provided a framework for establishing a sovereign wealth fund for St. Kitts and Nevis.
I want to thank the IMF for the work it has done. It has sent the framework for us to set up that sovereign wealth fund. It is critically important because it's going to help to transform us into a sustainable island state and make us more resilient.
Regarding revenue sharing between St. Kitts and Nevis, the Prime Minister noted that the World Bank has completed its analysis, which is now with the Financial Secretary for discussion with the Nevis Island Administration. He emphasized the importance of transparency and equity in revenue sharing arrangements.
The World Bank has sent its analysis, which is now with the FS, which will have discussions with the Nevis Island Administration so that we can flesh out properly how we will set up the mechanism to make sure that the sharing of revenues, whether tax or non-tax, that is totally transparent and open.
The Prime Minister reiterated his government's commitment to building a more resilient St. Kitts and Nevis through strategic investments in energy, water, education, health, and agriculture.
CARICOM's commitment to Haiti was evident at the 48th regular meeting as the grouping extensively discussed a more secure and stable future for the country. Speaking on the sidelines of the 48th regular meeting of CARICOM, St. Kitts and Nevis's Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew shared the sentiments of CARICOM, which is to ensure stability and a democratic resolution to Haiti's situation.
Well, basically, it is what CARICOM stands for, and that is to make sure that we bring stability to Haiti and take care of the security matters and help to prepare Haiti for elections. Again, I would stress that this is a Haitian-based solution. We are there to support so that Haiti can once again be a country that is secured and serving.
Dr. Denzel L. Douglas, the Minister of Foreign Affairs in St. Kitts and Nevis, believes that international cooperation is essential to restoring Haitian stability.
I believe definitely the time has come for us to seriously look at the Haitian situation, work with the international community, and bring about a lasting democratic change for the betterment of the people of Haiti. The way it is, it cannot continue. It is not sustainable. And so we are working on that.
Haiti has been in turmoil for an extensive period, with armed gangs terrorizing the island nation, killing and kidnapping people, recruiting children, and causing disruption to livelihoods and the day-to-day function of essential services. Dr. Carla Barnett, CARICOM's Secretary General, is expected to put forth a report and a proposal to the United Nations to arrest the situation in Haiti and address the root causes of the problems there. The proposal, she said, would recommend that the United Nations assume the responsibility for the structural and logistical expenditures that are necessary to put a force in place, while the salaries of the force are paid through the trust fund that already exists. Once the Security Council accepts the proposal, it would allow for an effective force to defeat the gangs in Haiti. Quote, "The gangs are inflicting intolerable suffering on desperate and frightened people," said Dr. Barnett to the 48th meeting's delegation. CARICOM has been adamant about ensuring democracy thrives in Haiti, including general elections owned and led by the Haitians. Haiti's elections were planned for November 15, 2025, but Prime Minister Mia Mottley, CARICOM's chair, is skeptical that elections would occur under such dire circumstances.
She is known for her prowess on the track, and now she is making waves with her voice, set to grace the St. Kitts Music Festival stage in 2025. Virgil Hodge, Olympian, is the new songstress captivating audiences with her melodic voice and creative lyrics.
Well, I'm elated. It's a very exciting opportunity. As you said, this is not my first time, but my first time as a solo artist, and especially now working as a reggae artist and getting ready to finish my EP. By that time I'll have 2 songs from the EP to perform, and I am looking forward for even other exposures on the international stage.
While this is not her first time performing on the biggest stage in St. Kitts and Nevis, this year she will share the spotlight with some of the finest acts in regional and international music, including Romain Virgo, Christopher Martin, and Jennifer Hudson.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward for that night. I'm looking forward to even meeting Jennifer Hudson as well, as someone that I would have seen on American Idol a couple of years ago. I know would have, have her career on the top as a singer. And Romain Virgo, Christopher Martin, of course, those are persons that you've seen a lot here in St. Kitts and seen perform, and they have made it as reggae artists as well, which, as I told you, my genre will be reggae. That's what I'm going to be focusing on. And I'm really looking forward to even maybe have collabs with either one of them, Romain or Christopher, and could, like I said, be on other international stage in the future.
What was it like when you got the word that, Virgil Hodge will be on the music festival lineup?
Wow. I would say I almost cry. But, sometimes I trust in God, and I trust that what He can do for me. And last year I started and I went on my own from the cover bands, and I tell myself, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this as a solo artist. I'm going to start having concerts. I would have had at least 4 concerts by myself, and push, doing cover music and cover songs. And in that time, I was also getting ready to focus on writing my songs for my reggae EP. So with it coming so soon, I really have to thank God for that.
So how do you plan to build on this, your first solo performance on the music festival stage, the biggest stage in St. Kitts and Nevis, to continuing to maybe Virgil Hodge, the big artist internationally?
I'm looking to perform real good, and perform real. St. Kitts, never seen anything like that before. And if you have seen any of my concerts, I bring out the dancers, I'm going to bring out the male dancers, bring out the female dancers, and I'm going to change my costume. So persons are expecting to see a great performance because what they've seen before, and that is what I want, to leave the stage with persons' mouth open and say, hey, she needs to be on a different stage. And so that is what I'm hoping for, to leave that kind of thing on persons and say, Virgil could definitely make it.
Could this be me and Virgil Hart performing throughout the Caribbean at other festivals?
Yes, definitely. And persons would have reached out already to us. I won't give too much secret, but for other fests as well and other international fests. And so we are hoping for the best, but of course they probably would wait and see what I put forward at the St. Kitts Music Festival and then say, hey, let's have her. So we're just waiting.
The St. Kitts and Nevis Fire and Rescue Services is celebrating 25 years since its separation from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. The St. Kitts and Nevis Fire and Rescue Services became an independent body on January 4, 2000. To commemorate its silver anniversary, the Fire Department has organized a year-long slate of activities under the theme Honoring Our Past, Serving the Present While Shaping the Future, 25 Years Fire Services Maneuver. Acting Deputy Chief Fire Officer Timothy Martin briefed WINN FM on the department's anniversary plans and activities. In January 2025, the St. Kitts Nevis Fire and Rescue Services launched a fire prevention campaign. Fire officers interacted with businesses by making presentations and conducting inspections, continuing their quest to educate the community about fire prevention.
So one of the major entities that we would have done presentations with was TDC. We had a lovely time both on St. Kitts and Nevis, providing them with safety information on how to keep the business safe.
In February, fire officers were involved in a cleanup campaign of the coastline in Basseterre from the area of the Cenotaph and beyond the area of Fisherman's Wharf. Martin said a significant portion of garbage was collected. He therefore admonished the general public to manage waste properly and keep the country clean.
We had quite a number of garbage in that area, and we were able to bag those garbage and deposit them at the landfill. So we are encouraging the general public, to keep our country clean. Fire Services is an entity that not only there to support persons, to extinguish fires rather, but we are there to lend support to the community as well.
The St. Kitts Nevis Fire and Rescue Services, in collaboration with the Ministry of Social Development and the Ministry of Health, expects to host a health fair in April 2025. The initiative is extended to the general public.
We should have a series of health checks. For the health checks, we are encouraging the general public to come out as well and be a part of this check. So it ranges from checking your blood pressure, your blood glucose level. We are looking to have eye examination if possible, also to do with hearing. We are looking to have prostate checks, pap smears, you name it. So it is not just for the fire officers to ensure that they are keeping healthy. We are also inviting the general public to come on out and share in that health check with us.
Additionally, the highly anticipated drill competition to be held in May is among the activities on the year's agenda. The competition will feature fire officers from each station. According to Martin, the event aims to test officers' endurance and build camaraderie. The details about other planned initiatives will be communicated as the year progresses. Martin said the activities allow the fire department to connect with the community and build trust and confidence. He requested the general public's support and collaboration as the department continues to promote fire safety. A delegation from St. Kitts and Nevis engaged in discussions on critical regional issues, including trade, food security, climate change, and cooperation at the 48th regular meeting of the Conference of the Heads of Government of CARICOM in Bridgetown, Barbados. Reflecting on the discussions, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, said several topics were discussed that could benefit the Federation, particularly in the areas of energy, health, security, and education.
There are specific things, of course, that were discussed about St. Kitts and Nevis that will benefit from. For example, the energy prospect that we have with the EU at this particular time. We think that that can be something that can positively help St. Kitts and Nevis. We discuss a lot of issues about security matters that can help St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as, security issues through the region are of critical importance at this particular time. We talked about education, health. So all of these matters that we discussed, St. Kitts and Nevis, of course, would benefit.
The discussions proved beneficial to St. Kitts and Nevis as the country seeks to embark on several major projects, including geothermal energy, a new smart hospital with improved specialized care, education transformation, and improved crime prevention initiatives and programs. Prime Minister Drew said the success of CARICOM trickles down to member states in ways that no territory can achieve on their own.
I want to reinforce the point that CARICOM makes a lot of sense to all of us. When you look at all of the institutions that are part of CARICOM, these institutions help all of the countries. And no country on its own would be able to have an institution of this caliber and quality if they were to stand on their own. So I want all the people of the region to know, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to know that CARICOM makes our lives better.
The delegation heard remarks by the CARICOM Secretary General, Dr. Carla Barnett, who encouraged continued advocacy and cooperation among member states to tackle weapons and drug trafficking, which has been powering the violent crimes across the region. Meanwhile, the climate crisis warrants urgent attention. Dr. Barnett said greater effort must be made to fight it as it continues to wreck economies, ruin lives, and threaten the existence of our people. She encouraged countries to formulate new climate action plans ahead of COP30 and tap into their vast renewable energy potential. Premier of Nevis Mark Brantley acknowledges the United States government's decision to deport undocumented Caribbean nationals. However, Brantley's stance is that fair treatment and regional security measures must be in place to prevent the movement of criminals throughout the Caribbean.
It is important for St. Kitts Nevis and I think for wider CARICOM to come up with a plan as to how they intend to manage. I am not as concerned about managing what I would call our ordinary people, for want of better language, meaning people who might have gone up there and overstayed. I am more concerned with how you manage the criminal element. If it is the plan to clean out the prisons, for example, and send home to the Caribbean those who might have committed incredibly violent crimes in America, those who are career criminals who might be in federal penitentiary, and you say to them, well, all right, back to Jamaica you go, back to Antigua you go, back to St. Kitts Nevis you go. How do we manage that? And so I'm thinking that we really need a plan in place. But one of the concerns, of course, is how do you monitor and ensure that those individuals aren't then allowed to filter through the region.
Apart from the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, free movement policy, CARICOM is edging closer to settling the documentation for the freedom of movement of CARICOM nationals from June 1, 2025, as disclosed by CARICOM Chair, Prime Minister Mia Mottley, at the 48th regular meeting of the body. In Brantley's view, the deportation matter needs a unified diplomatic response by CARICOM.
So, for example, we have freedom of movement in the OECS. So what if a very dangerous criminal is taken from prison and sent home to Dominica? Just drawing a reference. What will prevent him from deciding, I'm not going to stay in Dominica where people may know me, let me go to St. Kitts or Nevis, or let me go to Antigua? So I think CARICOM needs to articulate a plan and let us, the public, know what that plan is going to look like so that we could have some comfort and some reassurance that somebody deported to Trinidad doesn't make his or her way to St. Kitts Nevis if that individual was involved in some violent crime or had been incarcerated in the United States. So we need some work, and I fear that I'm not hearing anything coming from CARICOM on this. But to me, we need a regional response.
The Premier also raised the issue of integrating deportees, taking into account their socio-economic concerns, especially those of individuals who may not have families or friends with whom they can reside or rely.
To this. Bearing in mind, however, Ms. Weeks, that our people are our people. And we can't decide we're not going to accept our people because they are our people. And a man who's from Hamilton or Hanley's Road or Deep Bay or Taba is entitled to come home. Whether he comes home willingly or they send him home, he's entitled to come home. So we have to accept them once they come to our borders because they're our people. But for me, the issue is how do you now manage and how do you integrate them? Especially some of them may not have any family here, may not have any support network here. Some of them would have left. When I was foreign minister, I had a case where a young fellow left at 5 or 6 and went to the Virgin Islands, where he was now 42. And they were talking about deporting him because he had got himself involved in criminality. And he asked a question about housing. Where you going to stay? You know, he doesn't know anybody. He doesn't, never been to St. Kitts Nevis. As after he left at 6, never came back. Now you take him off a plane at RLB and tell him, go about your business. Where are you going to go? So we have to have those questions asked and satisfactorily answered. But I do believe that while it behooves St. Kitts and Nevis to have a plan, we need a wider CARICOM response as to how we deal with that, and particularly the threat of criminals coming back into the community.
St. Kitts Nevis Foreign Affairs Minister Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas, speaking to the press at the sidelines of the 48th regular meeting of CARICOM, said the mass deportation situation should be immediately addressed. Douglas said Caribbean leaders and governments need to seek an early opportunity to speak with the United States administration at the highest level. For St. Kitts and Nevis, deportation matters are addressed through authorized bodies within the Ministry of National Security or the embassies in Washington, D.C., who would process the necessary information and then take appropriate action.
In continued strides toward reducing its $198 million food import bill, St. Kitts and Nevis, through many initiatives, continues to bolster the agriculture and fisheries industries. Agriculture Minister the Honorable Samuel Duggins spoke of one of the initiatives during an interview with I'm Making It Happen, highlighting its potential to carve an export niche for local farmers.
We planted the first set of seeds for that project, and we are looking forward to yielding the fruits of that project and being able to set up a steady and secured export market for hot peppers to the Dipasca company going forward. So yes, as we call it, that's the hot topic right now.
The project, part of the Federation's emergency plan to meet CARICOM's 25 by 2025 target, aims to offset $50 million in annual imports by prioritizing 15 key crops, including tomatoes, onions, and pineapples. The urgency stems from St. Kitts and Nevis joining the regional initiative 2 years late in 2022, compelling a rapid mobilization. Over 115,000 pineapple slips, drip irrigation systems, and climate-resilient farming training have been distributed to 500-plus farmers.
Part of all of that wasn't just the practical side, it was the back-end training as well. So for every crop that we identified, we did a whole session of training along the entire value chain. So from land preparation, what's the best process? What type of seeds do you grow what time of year? Based on drought resilient, heat tolerance, what varieties do you select when? What's the best practice for production? Pest management, disease management, how best to harvest, post-harvest management, agro-processing, sales and marketing. We went all the way through the entire value chain and did training with all the farmers because they were all invited. So who came, we were able to impart that knowledge. But also we did that for every single identified crop. And farmers were able to sign up for their crop of choice. So some farmers signed up and said, I prefer growing tomatoes, I prefer growing melons, I prefer growing bananas. And for every identified crop, we train the farmers of interest.
There has also been a $15 million revenue spike in fisheries, a sector record.
Imagine empowering that family to earn their portion of that $50 million. And we're seeing a great deal of success. It was our fishing sector last year earned the highest revenue ever in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, $15 million. So somewhere within St. Kitts and Nevis, our fisher folk walked away with $15 million last year.
With 2025 as the finish line, the ministry is betting on transforming agriculture's stigma as menial labor into a wealth-building enterprise.
What does it look like empowering our local farming community to earn $50 million? You understand that economic development. And then when we look at it even deeper, who are traditionally our farmers? it is that family from the rural community that traditionally, if you look at the optics, that grew up in a wooden house and somewhere within what we would call the bush because they're surrounded by agriculture.
Agriculture Minister, the Honourable Samuel Duggins.
As the Caribbean region advances its 25 by 25 agenda to achieve food security and reduce dependency on imports, global economic challenges continue to affect households and businesses alike. Since the onset of the pandemic, St. Kitts and Nevis, like much of the rest of the region, has faced a soaring food import bill. In some cases, supermarket shelves have been left bare. Given the Federation's heavy reliance on imported goods, inflationary pressures from international markets have directly impacted local prices.
2024 would have seen major impact in the region as food prices for cereals, meat, dairy, vegetable oil, and raw sugar increased significantly on the global market. Of course, we import those increases, we import those inflation, and we have to manage within that context. However, 2025 is adding a lot of worry to the situation. The increased climate-related challenges, increased transportation and logistics costs, uncertainty in tariffs and rules, trade rules, would have a significant impact on the costs of food globally and here within our region.
According to the International Monetary Fund, inflation in St. Kitts and Nevis stood at 2.4% in 2024, a significant decrease from the 10.7% in 2022. While this represents some relief, concerns remain about the long-term stability of prices and the region's economic resilience. Then Dr. Irfan Ali recently addressed food security and inflation challenges in the region, highlighting concerns over rising egg prices.
Just to give you an example, bird flu as we know it was first reported around March 2022. As I speak to you now, current situation as a result of bird flu is alarming. There's a 20% decline in egg production from the US, and you would know that we source most of our hatching eggs out of the US. We source table eggs also. Many of the countries source table eggs out of the US. For a matter of fact, in some regions, when you look at the year-on-year increase in the cost of eggs since the first reported case of bird flu, it is 70% increase. When you look at egg prices as of January this year in the US, there's a 15% increase in the prices of eggs. When you look at poultry meat, there is a 11% decline in production as I speak to you in the US. And as you know, the US occupy about close to 30% of global market share in terms of poultry meat.
As the CARICOM lead on food and agriculture, he also provided updates on the progress of the 25 by 25 initiative.
We are discussing the impact of these challenges for the region, and important for us is to look at the full supply chain, to look at alternative supply routes, and to look at ways in which we can enhance and integrate our capacity and capability to withstand what could be a major shock in the global market. We have made significant progress. If you look at from 2022 to the end of October, November 2024, we would have had about a 24% increase in food production across the region. We would have had major investments in infrastructure to support food production, whether it's cold storage, farm to market access road, solar drying facility, loan approvals, establishment of dairy facilities. We have seen significant increase
In St. Kitts and Nevis, efforts continue towards achieving the goal of reducing the nation's 200 million food import bill. The government has been implementing measures to strengthen local agricultural production and enhance food stability.
What we did more so was not just look at it through that lens, but look at it through an economic empowerment lens. And our vision was, how can we put 25% of that money into the hands and the pockets of local farmers? How can we ensure that our local farmers were making 25% of $200 million approximately?
Samuel Duggins, Minister of Agriculture.
Kyron Phillip, a Kittitian fugitive who prompted a regional manhunt, was detained in St. Martha. The Director of Public Prosecution, DPP, Mr. Adlai Smith, announced on February 24. It is believed by authorities that Mr. Kyron Phillip, also known as Tall-Up, fled the Federation by sea. He was at large for over 6 months, while the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force consistently issued wanted bulletins in anticipation of his arrest.
There have been significant developments in the ongoing case of fugitive Kyron Phillip, who is wanted for murder in St. Kitts. Late last week, Mr. Phillip was detained in St. Martin, where he is currently the subject of police investigation. Law enforcement authorities in the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis are actively engaging their counterparts in St. Martin to determine next steps regarding his extradition and other legal proceedings.
St. Kitts and Nevis has no extradition treaty with St. Martha, but is signed on to the Mutual Assistance Agreement, a police source said. Meanwhile, in a correlated case, Crown Counsel Chantrice Dorset remains behind bars awaiting bail.
Meanwhile, in a related matter, prosecutor Chantrice Dorset remains in custody while her bail application is under consideration by the High Court. Given the serious nature of the allegations surrounding these cases, my office will continue to closely monitor all developments and provide updates as necessary.
Dorset faces 6 charges: accessory after the fact to murder, 3 counts of attempting to pervert the course of justice, misconduct in public office, and corruption. The charges laid against Dorset are related to the murder of Akeem Archibald, who was fatally shot with a high-powered automatic rifle on July 20, 2024. Mr. Kyron Phillip was identified as the prime suspect in the killing. The St. Kitts Nevis Bar Association issued a statement on charges brought against several attorneys at law. The statement reads in part, quote, "The St. Kitts Nevis Bar Association acknowledges the serious charges recently brought against certain members of our profession. These developments have raised a public concern, both locally and regionally, and we take these matters with the utmost seriousness. While these allegations are serious, it is essential to emphasize that all individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The legal process must be allowed to unfold, and we trust that the judicial system will handle these charges with the utmost fairness and efficiency," unquote. The Bar Association implored the public to respect due process and to keep in mind that each individual is entitled to a fair trial. The statement comes on the heels of the announcement on Friday, February 21, that attorney-at-law Vaughn Henderson was arrested and charged. He faces 6 counts of money laundering and 2 counts of perverting the course of justice. On February 18, Craig Tuckett was also arrested and charged with 3 counts of perverting the course of justice. In January, Crown Counsel Chantrice Dorset was charged with 6 offenses, including perverting the course of justice.
You were listening to the Week in Review here on WINN FM 98.9. Thank you for listening and have a productive week.